My stepmom screamed when she opened the gift box at her birthday dinner. Her hands shook, her voice cracked, because inside wasn't jewelry, it wasn't perfume, it was proof of betrayal, of theft, of something far darker. And everyone at that table, her friends, her church pals, even her precious bridge group, saw exactly who she really was. Finally. The first time I met Violet, she was wearing my mom's necklace. I was 15, sitting stiff on the green velvet couch in the Hay funeral home's reception room. My mom had been dead for 4 months. Dad was already holding Violet's hand. And that necklace, Mom's favorite, the one she wore every Sunday to church, was glinting on Violet's throat like a trophy. She gave me a big smile, like we were meeting at a baby shower, not my mom's damn wake. "I'm so sorry, Easton," she said. "Your mother was a wonderful woman." Her tone was sugary, but her eyes were calculating. Violet taught Pilates to rich housewives in Sycamore Falls. Blonde, lean, Botoxed. She looked like someone who should be jogging in Lululemon. Not shaking hands at a funeral, my dad, Neil, was the kind of man who'd call himself a self-made financial architect. Which just meant he moved rich people's money around and took a cut. Mom had been the heart. She came from old money, quiet money. She owned the house, the land, the investments. Dad ran the show, but she owned the theater. And then, she got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed in April, gone by August. 4 brutal months of chemo, hospital smells, and me watching her fade while Dad got late-night work calls. Which I found out later meant sushi dinners with Violet at the East Bay Ritz. 2 months after the funeral, he moved Violet in. She redecorated, which meant she boxed up every trace of Mom and replaced it with abstract art and furniture that looked like it belonged in a showroom, not a home. She stopped using my name, started calling me Sweetie. She made smoothies that tasted like grass clippings. She deleted my mom's favorite playlist off the car stereo and replaced it with a meditation podcast called Awaken Your Inner Flame. I kept quiet. For 2 years, I said nothing. I studied. I kept a 4.2 GPA. I got into Columbia's pre-law program. On paper, I was the golden kid. Inside, I was rage wearing a button-down shirt. Then I found the flash drive. It was buried in the back of Mom's old jewelry box, the one Violet had stashed in the attic. Inside, spreadsheets, PDFs, images, voice memos, all labeled meticulously. Trust transfers. 401k adjustments. Violet Neal motel recordings. Mom had known, she'd suspected the affair, before she got sick. But what she discovered was bigger. Documents showing fraudulent withdrawals from her inheritance trust. Property titles changed behind her back. And medical records. Ones she'd collected secretly. Hair sample reports. Elevated toxin levels. Patterns that hinted at something I couldn't believe at first. Someone had been slowly poisoning her. The first time I confronted Dad, indirectly, I just asked, "How come Mom never used pesticides in the garden?" He blinked. She was organic, right?" I nodded, and logged his reaction. I spent the next 12 months gathering evidence. Quietly. Violet thought I was out skateboarding. I was at the county recorder's office pulling land ownership transfers. She thought I was on TikTok. I was recording their conversations through a voice memo app stitched into my hoodie string. The final straw, they tried to adopt me. "We just want to make it official before you leave for New York," Violet cooed. "You're ours now." That word, ours, made my stomach turn. So I said yes. I smiled. I signed the preliminary papers, and then I planned her birthday. It was her 42nd. She invited 50 people to the backyard. White tents, string lights, sushi bar, live string quartet. She wore a white cocktail dress like she was getting married again. My dad gave a toast about how she was the woman who brought light back into our lives. I gave her a gift, a box wrapped in matte black with a white bow. She opened it, smiling at first, then frowning. Inside was a single-bound report, gold-embossed cover that read, "For Violet, a lifetime of memories." She flipped it open. First page, a photo of Mom in her garden, smiling. Second, the motel receipt from Violet and Dad's weekend in Asheville, dated 2 days before Mom's first chemo. Third, a screenshot of a text. "Neil, she's fading fast. Can't wait till we don't have to pretend anymore." Violet's hand clamped over her mouth. Guests leaned in. Whispers started. I took the mic. "I just want to say how grateful I am," I said. "To Violet, for showing me what betrayal really looks like, for teaching me how not to trust appearances, and for helping me understand the difference between stepmother and usurper. The crowd went silent. Dad stood up. "Easton, enough." "No," I said. "You've had enough. Now, it's my turn." And I clicked the projector remote. The screen behind them lit up, with everything. The projector flickered. The screen came alive. And the crowd gasped. First a spreadsheet with offshore account transfers. Every line highlighted, dates marked, the amounts shocking. Then a voice memo. My father's voice, clear as day. "If she signs that last amendment, we'll be set. Don't screw it up, Violet." Someone in the back coughed. The violinist stopped mid-note. I didn't blink. Violet dropped her wine glass. It shattered on the patio tile, just like her fake perfect reputation. "Turn that off," Dad barked, lunging toward the remote. But I was ready. "Try it, Neil," I snapped. "Touch me in front of 50 witnesses. Make this even easier." He froze, red-faced, trembling. "You manipulated the family trust. You liquidated assets, Mom. Earmarked for cancer research. You bought Violet a beach condo in Sarasota while telling me there wasn't enough for community college." I turned to the guests, most of whom were staring in horror or recording. "You all see it now, don't?" "You?" I said, voice shaking with fury. "She's not a mother. He's not a father. They're thieves, liars, cowards." Violet stood, unsteady in her heels, eyes glistening with rage. "You ungrateful little snake," she hissed. "You'll regret this." I laughed, loudly, cruelly. "Regret? Oh, Violet, I regretted nothing more than staying quiet for so long." Then I walked off that patio, to thunderous silence, and straight into the house, locking myself in Dad's office. They pounded on the door. I ignored them, because I was already emailing the file to the IRS, the FBI, and 6 news outlets. This wasn't some petty family spat. This was embezzlement, fraud, possibly manslaughter, and it was finally out of my hands. I spent the night at a hotel. My heart raced. My hands couldn't stop shaking. But I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I felt alive the next morning. Chaos. News vans camped on the curb. My phone buzzed nonstop. I turned it off. By 10 a.m., Violet's image was all over Twitter. A clip of her screaming at me during the party. Viral. Hashtag, #Stepmom from hell. Dad tried to call. Dozens of times. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked into a lawyer's office with 2 briefcases. One with evidence, the other with a copy of Mom's original will. "You're ready for this?" the attorney asked me. I nodded. "I've been ready since I was 15. By noon, an injunction froze every account in Dad's name. A judge signed a temporary control order putting Mom's trust and the company in my care until trial." Dad lost his mind. He showed up at my hotel that night, pounding on the door like a lunatic. "You have no idea what you're doing," he shouted through the hallway. "You'll ruin everything." I opened the door just long enough to say, "I'm not ruining it. You already did." Then I slammed it shut. The next few days were a blur. Every secret they thought was buried, dug up and aired, fake charities, shell companies, forged signatures. It was all there. Violet's Pilates business? Turns out it was laundering gift money through dummy invoices. Cute, huh? The condo in Sarasota, bought using funds from a nonprofit set up in Mom's name? A nonprofit. Who does that? The media tore them to shreds. Clients pulled out of Dad's firm. Sponsors dropped Violet's online brand overnight. But the worst blow? I filed a motion to reverse the adoption. Oh yeah, that part. She thought that paperwork gave her legal leverage. Joke's on her. I had signed under duress, and the court agreed. "You're no one to me now," I told her when she tried to ambush me at the courthouse. "Not family, not even a memory." "Please," she whispered, makeup smeared, hair wild. "We can fix this. Fix it. You wore my mom's necklace before she was even cold. You sat in her chair, drank her wine, and smiled while you stole everything she built." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "You deserve nothing," I said, and walked away. Later that week, I met with the forensic accountant. "You won," he said simply. "No," I corrected. "Mom did." Because this had always been for her. Every late night, every bit of rage I bottled, every trap I set. It was all for the woman they buried too early and betrayed too completely. And it wasn't over yet. Because what I found next, it changed everything. 3 days after the injunction, I received a nondescript envelope delivered by private courier. No return address, just one line on the back. From someone who knew the truth. Inside, a flash drive, and a single sheet of paper with 7 words. Your mother's death wasn't just cancer. My stomach dropped. I plugged the drive into my laptop, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the fan spin up. There were 3 files. The first, a scanned letter, dated 10 months before Mom died, addressed to a man named Dr. Quentin Mahler. I'd never heard of him. But in the letter, Mom wrote about feeling strange after meals, about sudden disorientation, metallic tastes, sleep paralysis, and unexpected tremors. She begged the doctor for help and included notes about her food logs, symptoms, and even photos of the strange gray residue she'd found in her tea kettle. I felt sick. I clicked the second file. A video. Grainy. Surveillance footage. It looked like it was filmed in our own kitchen. The timestamp? 2 weeks before her hospitalization. The footage showed my father. He was standing at the stove, stirring something. Then, he pulled a small vial from his pocket, unscrewed the cap, poured it into her teacup. My hands flew to my mouth. I watched, frozen, as he wiped the cup's edge with a cloth, placed it carefully on a tray with lemon slices, and carried it toward the sunroom where Mom used to read in the mornings. No audio. No context. But what the hell else could that be? I played it 3 more times. My legs were shaking by the end. The third file? A signed statement from a former housekeeper, Nadia. Fired shortly after Mom's funeral. She claimed she'd seen Mr. Neal mixing powders into drinks, and when she'd asked questions, Violet told her she was hallucinating from old cleaning chemicals and was no longer needed. My head spun. Poison? Was it really poison? How could I prove it? I grabbed the second box Mom had left me, the one I hadn't dared open before. Inside were more medical documents, tissue sample test results, private lab results, all pointing to slow toxic exposure. Heavy metals. Not natural. Not a coincidence. Suddenly, I remembered something. An old thermos of hers. It had been left in the basement freezer in a bag labeled "Don't Touch." I'd always assumed it was sentimental. I ran to the basement, tore the freezer open. The thermos was still there, still sealed, still cold. I called Judge Whitaker, the retired judge helping me with the case, and told him everything. His voice was tight, controlled. But I heard it crack when I said the word poison. We need a forensic team, he said. Now, do not open that container. I'll send someone over. They arrived in unmarked cars, gloves, coolers, badges. They took the thermos, promised expedited testing, and left. For 48 hours, I couldn't sleep. What if I was wrong? What if this was all a nightmare of grief-fueled revenge? But deep down, I knew I wasn't. Because on the morning of the 3rd day, they called. I answered on the first ring. Mr. Kessler, the agent said. We've finished preliminary tests. The contents of the thermos contain extremely high levels of thallium. I blinked. What's thallium? It's a heavy metal, colorless, tasteless, once used in rat poison, very hard to detect in low doses, illegal in most forms today. I couldn't speak. Based on the breakdown of metabolites, he continued, we believe the exposure was consistent with long-term ingestion, weeks, if not months. Lethal levels, if consumed regularly. My mouth was dry. So it wasn't cancer? Oh no, the agent said grimly. It was murder. Those words hit me like a freight train. Murder, not a metaphor, not a theory. Cold, premeditated, calculated. I sat there in silence, just breathing, just surviving. Because now it wasn't about the trust, or the business, or the reputation. It was about justice, real, brutal, no-mercy justice. I gave the FBI everything, the drive, the statements, the financial records, the footage. They confirmed it all. They were already building a case. But here's the twist. Violet vanished. She cut off her ankle monitor, ditched her car on a bridge, and disappeared. Poof, gone. My father, he lawyered up, told them it was grief manipulation, that I hacked the video, that the evidence was doctored by a bitter teenager. So I dropped the last piece, an audio file, one I'd saved for months. Dad on the phone with Violet. Just make sure it's not traceable, he said. No more accidents. Just slow her down. I need more time. That was the bullet. After that, the agent stopped calling me kid. Now they call me Mr. Kessler, and they want me to testify. But first, I have one last card to play. The trial was scheduled for mid-June, but I didn't want to wait. I didn't want courts, lawyers, plea deals. I wanted destruction, public, permanent, absolute. The FBI had Violet listed as a federal fugitive, Interpol alerts, watch lists. But something in my gut told me she hadn't run far. She was too vain, too image-obsessed to live in some Bolivian shack. She wanted a comeback, and monsters like her, they always circle back to the stage. I was right. 2 weeks later, she posted a new video, not under her name, but under the fitness brand she'd co-founded, Vim Strong Wellness title, Reclaiming My Truth. My jaw dropped. There she was, sitting in a beach villa, hair perfectly curled, wearing a soft pink hoodie that screamed, Innocent Yoga Queen. I've been silent too long, she said, eyes glistening. I've been a victim of lies, of manipulation, of a child's. Grief weaponized. Victim? My hands clenched into fists. She talked for 15 minutes, about being framed, about misunderstood love, about a grieving boy desperate for someone to blame. The comments flooded with sympathy. You're so strong, Violet. We love you. Cancel culture ruins good people. Good people? I nearly blacked out from rage. She called me a liar, a delusional orphan, claimed she'd loved Mom like a sister, that I had mental instability from the trauma and was being exploited by corrupt lawyers with vendettas. You want to go public, Violet? Game on. That night, I uploaded my own video, title, The Truth About Violet Kessler, by her. Grieving stepson? I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I told the story. Calmly, clearly. I showed documents. Played recordings. Displayed video stills. I laid out how she manipulated my father, stole from my mother's trust, and helped orchestrate the slow murder of a woman who trusted her. I ended it with one line. Violet, if you're watching this, I'm not a grieving child anymore. I'm your reckoning. And I posted it. 12 hours later, I woke up to 4 million views. By dinner, it was 10. By midnight, 23. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, CNN, NBC, late-night talk shows, everyone was talking about it. The public flipped. Comment sections lit, up like bonfires. Monster! Where is she hiding? Arrest her already. But that wasn't enough. She had run. Dad hadn't. So I turned my eyes on him. He thought he was safe. Thought he'd weather the storm. Called me from his lawyer's office the next morning. I'll settle, he said. No prison. I'll give you the company. Half the assets. Walk away. Half? I said, laughing. You think I want half of what's already mine? I raised you, Easton, he barked. I protected you. No, I replied coldly. You protected your lie. Then I hung up. The next move? Legal execution. We activated the corporate clause Mom had inserted into the original Articles of Incorporation. It stated that any executive guilty of moral fraud could have their stake forcibly removed if proven in court or via whistleblower testimony with corroborating evidence. Guess who had both? My legal team filed the documents, fast-tracked by media pressure and state involvement. A hearing was set within 72 hours. My father's empire gone in a single signature. By the end of the week, he was out of the company, out of the house, and under investigation for financial crimes, tax fraud, and conspiracy. But I wasn't finished. I went to the house, my house, and walked through the rooms he once claimed as trophies. I tore down their wedding portrait. I smashed the crystal vase they bought on their honeymoon to Santorini, paid for by embezzled trust funds. I emptied Violet's walk-in closet, dragging $40,000 worth of clothes to the curb and slapping a free-to-real women sign on the pile. Then I walked into the kitchen, Mom's kitchen, and I stood in the exact spot he'd stirred her tea. You thought this would stay hidden? I whispered. You thought I'd forget? My phone buzzed, a restricted number. I picked up. I know where she is, a voice said. I froze. Who is this? A friend, they said. She's in Naples, Florida, private resort, going by the name Vivian Lane. Check Unit 6C. They hung up. I checked the address. It existed. 6 hours later, the U.S. Marshals did too. They kicked the door in at dawn and found her inside, mid-yoga pose, broadcasting live on some influencer platform. That video? Her being cuffed in her $900 leggings? 26 million views in 24 hours. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile, I just exhaled. Because now it was real. The poisoner, the thief, the fraud, finally facing justice. But there was one last twist. I hadn't planned for one more betrayal, one that nearly destroyed me. I should have felt peace. Violet was in custody. The feds were circling. The truth was out. But peace? That's a fairy tale. 2 days after Violet's arrest, I found a letter slipped under my hotel room door. No envelope, just folded once, creased. Down the middle, in my father's handwriting. You think you've won, but I still have cards to play. What the hell? I tore down to the front desk. No security footage, no name, just someone in a dark jacket, face down, sunglasses on. Was it a bluff? No, because 3 hours later, the Daily Ledger published a full-page op-ed written by Neil Kessler, former father and victim of a vendetta. He told the public his version, that Mom had rewritten her will under the influence of sedatives, that I had been brainwashed by retired cronies with axes to grind, that I had mental episodes and was obsessed with conspiracies. He said he had proof I'd falsified evidence and hinted I was being used as a puppet in a corporate takeover. Then, the kicker. He claimed he had been poisoned too, that Violet had manipulated him, and that he'd gone to doctors for months about fatigue and tremors, and had his own lab tests, lies, all of it, but they printed it, and people believed him. Comments poured in. What if the kid really is unstable? Something feels off with both sides. Where's the actual proof of murder? I couldn't breathe. I'd bled for this justice, risked everything. And now, he was painting himself as the other victim. I met with Judge Whitaker that night. He's playing chess, the judge said. He's got nothing left but character, assassination. And people always believe fathers who look sad on camera. I clenched my jaw. I want to destroy him. You already are, he said. But this last move, it has to be surgical, so I made a choice. One I'd been avoiding for months. I released everything. Not just the trust papers, not just the theft, but the medical records, the lab results, the autopsy reanalysis, every foul receipt, every text, every voice message, every video. No redactions. I opened the vault. The internet exploded. Justice for Evelyn trended worldwide. My mom's face, finally, was everywhere. But that's when he cracked. He went on a live stream. 45 minutes of manic rambling. Cigar, smoke, sweat on his brow. He said I had threatened him, that Mom was mentally unstable, that Violet was just misunderstood. He blamed everyone but himself, until minute 37. That's when he slipped. He said something he didn't realize the mic caught. She kept asking why her stomach hurt. I told her it was stress. Stress, and that damn turmeric tea. The feed glitched, then cut, but the internet heard it. So did the FBI. They knocked on his door that night, didn't even wait for a warrant. Seized his hard drives, his phones, his financial backups, and what they found blew everything up. Because hidden in an encrypted folder was a document. One line. Time-stamped. Dated 6 days before Mom's death. The problem will be over soon. I doubled the dose. He'd written it. To Violet. Subject line, Endgame. My knees gave out when the FBI showed me. I stared at the screen, my reflection in the glass. Pale, numb. Endgame? Was that what we were to him? Just obstacles to clear? I wanted to scream, to smash the monitor, to rip something apart, but all I could do was nod. Finally, they arrested him. Conspiracy to commit murder. Financial crimes. Obstruction. Abuse of a protected trust. No more gray areas. No more games. But the damage already done. My name was known. My trauma public. Strangers debated my sanity. Lawyers circled like vultures. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I passed a mirror, I saw him in my face, his eyes, his rage, his calculation. Was I becoming him? Was revenge rotting me too? I didn't know. All I knew was this: he tried to erase my mother, and I burned his legacy to the ground instead. But it wasn't over. The trial was coming, and I would have to face them both, in one room, under oath, one last time. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Marble floors, high ceilings, too clean, too quiet. The kind of place built to make pain feel small, but I wasn't small anymore. They sat across from me, Violet in beige, pretending to be fragile, my father in charcoal gray, pretending to be calm. Two murderers in soft fabrics. I didn't look away, not when they whispered, not when they smirked, not when the prosecution rolled out photo after photo of my mom, healthy, then hollow. smiling, then gone. Not when they showed the financial trails. The poison test results, the secret recordings, the private emails, the jury's expressions said everything. Disgust, shock, horror, but it wasn't until I took the stand that the room truly broke. They asked about my mom, her voice, her laugh, the way she never missed a single piano recital, how she held my hand during her chemo, whispering, "It's okay to be scared, I am too." I didn't cry. Not until I described the day I found her necklace around Violet's neck. That memory? That one sliced me open. She stole her life, I said, and then tried to replace it. I saw Violet flinch. And Dad? He didn't move. Not once. Just stared, like he was waiting for his turn. Then, he got it. They asked him if he'd killed her. He said no. They asked if he'd poisoned her. He said no. They asked if he'd written, "I doubled the dose." He hesitated, then smiled, and said yes. Gasps filled the courtroom. But he wasn't finished. "She begged me to stop," he said, "and I almost did. But I'd already gone too far. I had to finish it." The room went silent. Even Violet turned white, and that's when I realized she didn't know. She hadn't read that message. She thought she was in control. But he'd used her too. She stood up, shaking. "You said we'd do it together." "Oh, Violet," he said calmly. "There was never a we. Just me." The judge pounded the gavel. Bailiffs swarmed, but I didn't move. I sat there, watching them finally unravel each other like the venomous snakes they were, and that was the justice I didn't even know I needed. Not a verdict, not prison, but them, turning on each other, devouring their own. That day, the jury found them both guilty. Life sentences. No parole. The news exploded. Again. Headlines everywhere. Couple convicted in slow burn murder of heiress. Stepson's revenge becomes national reckoning. They called me a hero, a symbol, a cautionary tale. But I wasn't any of that. I was just a son who loved his mother and made sure no one forgot her name. I didn't go to the sentencing. Instead, I stood at her grave. "I did it," I whispered. "They're gone." The wind blew hard, almost like a reply. I placed a single photo on her headstone. The one I'd taken the day before everything fell apart. Mom in her garden, laughing, alive, and beneath it, a note written in violet ink. "You didn't raise a victim. You raised a weapon." I turned away and never looked back. And here it is, the finale of today's story. Did everything turn out as you imagined, or did it end unexpectedly? I'd love to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's dive into the discussion together. If this story kept you in suspense, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? This is your chance to join an incredible community where exciting new stories unfold every day. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Thanks for your attention and see you on your new adventures.